And my game is not loaded. Okay, there we go. Alright, there it is. Okay. My audio is just, I'm not hearing any of it for some reason.
It's also not going through the stream.
Okay. That is... that is super weird.
Check your audio source on OBS.
Yeah.
And check your PCs as well.
Yeah, I think, okay, give me a second. I'm gonna fix this. Just 1 second. Let's go like this. Okay, I can hear it now, which is okay. I am completely lost. Okay. I have no idea what I have done, but something has caused problems. There we go. Oh, finally. And for some reason, I think the Discord is now... Oh, you're here. Okay. You weren't saying anything, so I was just completely lost about what was going on. Okay. There we go. Yes. Great.
First times are starting to be posted now here on Imola. First of things first, Harlan Marquise to set the top time of a 14.3. Subsequently, he has been usurped off that top spot, though, by Jone Dobson. Once again, coming out the gate swinging, just as he did last week at Spa. This time not in the McLaren, however, in the Williams. With a 13.8 this time around. So, pretty good results so far for the early runs in qualifying. A few people setting medium runs in Q1. That's probably just so they have tyre sets available when it comes to Q3. But all things considered, pretty decent early doors.
I completely agree. Honestly, this is probably my worst track on the calendar.
Right.
So, I honestly... I have no love for chicanes, and this one has like too many in my opinion.
Oh yeah, a bit like Canada in that respect. It's just got chicanes to slow the track down.
Yeah, and there's just like the first sector is just like the home of the chicanes. There's just 2 high-speed chicanes that just you have to get perfect, or you are going to be in the gravel or in the sand or completely off track. Like, there is literally no way you are going to be rewarded for slightly missing your braking point or the apex.
No, but I suppose it makes it a difficult circuit, and obviously small errors become big problems in the grand scheme of things. So first things first, I think it's important to recognise that in a track such as this, and I think it's important to recognise the difficulty, the skill gap, the ceiling to it, if you will. And I think that's where we'll really see some of these best drivers kind of separated from the lesser good drivers, I think. I mean, Spa, for example, last week is one of those tracks that I feel can be quite forgiving. With it being such a long lap, you have a lot of time to make up time. And often a lot of the corners are quite quick as well. But Here, a lot of corners are slower paced, so you're in heavy traction zones, off camber, going uphill, such as that of Aqua Minerale. So you've got a lot of difficult areas of this track that require a little bit of skill, require a little bit of patience, and often require just a bit more knowledge than would necessarily be required for a track like Spa. So we'll really see the cream of the crop rising to the top here, I imagine.
Yes, and Istvan Pukki, who, according to almost the entirety of the Tier 3 chat, was said to be the fastest driver on the field on this track by far, but does not seem to have put in a time that shows that, actually.
Well, maybe he hasn't done so previously with a 14.5. I'd probably estimate that would be enough to get him through into Q2, but he's going out on another lap anyway on a fresh set of soft tyres. Maybe he did that previous lap on the mediums, if I'm not mistaken, but the Hungarian driver in the Ferrari currently rounding his way up the second sector, about to get himself down in towards the Variante Alta chicane, but currently just powering through Aqua Minerale as Danny Co, surprisingly retiring from the session without setting a lap, interestingly enough, but through Variante Alta and now making the fast-paced descent in towards Ravazza for Istvan Pukki, looking to try and set the timing screens alight currently as he swings it round this double left-hander, being very careful not to invalidate on track limits, but he does so on the exit of Ravazza. As a result, he'll just dive straight into the pit lane and slap a new set of tyres on to go out for another lap, I'd assume.
And I like to see that there's some people here that are deciding to go for the mediums, which have proven to be a great choice on this track, from what I know, which is very little, so.
Yeah, the mediums are a powerful tyre. I think on any track with a limited strategy, such as that of Imola, you can find yourself with the alternate strategy, by which I mean the mediums onto the softs, having a considerable pace advantage towards the end, because when the fuel comes out of the car, those soft tyres can really be put to some good use. And speaking of soft tyres being put to good use, I think it's time that we should give some love to Jerne Dobson, who's just started his second flying lap of the session, currently sitting on the pole time of 13.8. He's going to be looking to be flying through the Tamburello chicane as he now departs quickly down into turns 5 and 6, the Villeneuve chicane. Going to throw it through here quickly, change the direction back onto the right, keeps it within the boundaries of the track limits. Up now around the big long left-hander of Tosa as he'll move up the hill quickly around the kink of 8 into Piratella at 9. And he should be finding himself on with a good lap already. Second sector is looking pretty strong thus far, but he's already invalidated at Piratella. So that's a lap that he's going to be bailing out of very, very quickly. And unfortunately, once again, we're seeing the dangers of track limits, Reigns.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised that he got the track limits there and not the second or third corner after that. I don't even know what it's called, because that one is the most difficult one, because you can very easily miss your turning point or your braking point and have to go on the escape road. Because I find that one to be one of those corners that just either you nail it or you go severely off track and invalid.
Yeah, Aqua Minerale is one of those famous corners on this circuit. It's been a part of the layout for pretty much as long as this track has existed, and it is a driver's favourite for the challenging nature of it. Speaking of challenging nature, Cornell Burke's looking to try and challenge the top of the timing sheets with a 14.6, but it is unfortunately nowhere near close. Unfortunately for him. But we have still got plenty of drivers out on track at the moment who are setting not just their second lap times, but their first. Currently, Ayub Khan came out of a pretty tumultuous weekend last weekend in Belgium, looking to try and improve on things here. He's just started a pretty decent lap as he's already flying through Villeneuve chicane, now up towards Tosa. Just going to keep it cranked. Traction is really, really important out of that corner, and he's managed to get a decent run at it. I'm not sure whether this time is going to be troubling the top 5 at the moment with the current sector splits, but it's doing decently. Doesn't invalidate through Piratella, down in towards Aqua Minerale now as he throws it in left at turn 11, up through the very difficult traction zone at 12, but short shifting all the way to 5th gear to make sure he doesn't go off that track limits. Now diving through the Alta chicane, doing everything that he can to try and maximize the time gain on that chicane by diving over those sausage curbs just enough that it doesn't unsettle the car as he now barrels down the hill, throws it left into Ravazza. just again keeping it inside the lap boundaries of track limits. We don't want any Lando Norrises over here where they're going to be taking it outside the bounds of track limits. Ayub Khan manages to trouble the top 10 with his time, as that puts him in 10th with a 14.5.
I want to see what these bottom three who have yet to set a lap time are going to do. And also, let's not forget that Danny Coe, who retired very early on, is also the defending champion. Which is, last time around in Belgium, he did not have a great time. He severely, like, botched his strategy slightly because of the rain. But this time, not even qualifying seems a bit uncharacteristic.
Or maybe there was an accident of some sorts that occurred. I'm not quite sure what the reasoning was for his shortcomings here in qualifying, but last time out, like you mentioned, wasn't really the best time for him. Was at the start of the race contending with the front runners, but if you recall, got span around in the bus stop chicane by Jone Dovson. That sent them both into a pretty contentious position. Dovson ultimately coming into the pits right away. The same true for Danny Coe, who actually I think went through 2 wing changes that race, as well as the missed strategy on the intermediate. So was a weekend to forget to him for sure. But we've been speaking previously about Istvan Pukki, who's just set a purple second sector. He's now flying in towards Ravazza. It's going to be interesting to see what lap time he can put on the board here, as long as he doesn't invalidate on the exit curb of turn 17 or 18, which he's done so successfully, and will now just barrel across the line to set the fastest time of the session so far. A 13.5, 0.3 of a second faster than Jerne Dobson in second place.
The weights are coming off, it seems. The weights are coming off with just 4 minutes left on the timer. That is 0.3. Like, do we feasibly think that Jerne Dobson, who is the closest person to beat that time, can pull out 0.3? Do we think that is something that Jerne Dobson can do? He's just making his way around to start the lap, but that is crazy. And also, buffers. Okay. My co-commenter is probably having some issues of connectivity of sorts. Seems. He has had a power surge of sorts. That's unfortunate, but he'll be back shortly. In the meantime, you're stuck with me. And Jerne Dobson is just about to start his lap and going down the first sector. I'm sorry, I do not know the corner names. I've followed F1 for a long time, but I've not had the best of luck. So 0.3 to gain across this entire lap, and invalidates right after the first chicane, or the second chicane, to be fair. And that's not something you want to be with time to save 0.3. But you can see the pressure's getting to him. Trying to make 0.3 work around this track will be extremely difficult. In the meantime, we have a few.
There we go.
There we go. Welcome back.
My house has just received a power surge, so my PC just shut off. That was really nice. Thank you, sir. Action, though.
I mean, it's better than having a complete power outage.
Yes, very much so.
I think too much power is always better than no power whatsoever. Well,
as long as it's only temporary and doesn't happen again or result in a power cut, I'm more than happy with the result of that. Either way, I should be back into spectating for a moment, but what have I missed in the meantime? Anybody been able to trouble Pukki at the top of the timing sheets?
No, Jerne Dobson tried, but in the second chicane invalidated the time. And to be honest, with just 0.3, having to gain 0.3 on a whole lap, which, to be honest, that's 13.5 is already just baffling to me. That someone can set a lap time that quick in a qualifying session. And Istvan Pukki is not even putting everything off the table because he's going out for another lap, which is, I mean, which can be said about a lot of these people. Tax and Edwards have to set a lap time, and Edwards has to make his way around to set a lap time because he has invalidated this lap. And with the amount of traffic coming his way, this is not something you wanna... He's gonna have to put the pedal to the metal, as they say, to make it around in time.
Right. Oh, great. My game is bugging out, so now I can't even see the timing tower. That's just wonderful. More technical difficulties for me, so that's going to be a restart of the game.
I think everyone has had technical difficulties right here. Ooh, wow.
F1 is just a great game for it, to be honest. Technical difficulties are extremely prevalent upon it.
I mean, it is a very difficult game to run for some people, and for others it's very difficult to even play. I don't know what I wanted to say there, but by the way, Tax just set a purple sector 2.
Okay.
That's he has yet to set a time, so that's a good sign if you're Tax. At the very least. Also, Yoni Dobson did improve by 2/10 and has now set a lap time of 13.6. Tax, a 1,000th off of Harlan Marquise in P5.
Looked to me like
seconds.
Looked to me like a pretty strong middle sector, but a couple of mistakes maybe in the early portion of the lap that we didn't quite get to see may have set him a little bit off course with that one. But even so,
and with no one being able to set a lap, instead we have Candy King making his way around. Almost finished. And can he make an improvement? No is the answer. And Danny Shaw has decided to call it quits.
Well, that looks like how it's going to be then. I think the only person who may still be troubling anything is people on laps, Harlan Marquise. Edwards has just retired from the session. Harlem isn't pushing either, so that's the end of the session by the looks of things. Yes, I'm still having spectator bugs, which is neat, I suppose, but hopefully they'll resolve themselves into the next portion of the session. I'm not sure whether this is a short qualifying session or a full qualifying session, as a matter of fact, because it feels like
it's a short one.
Yeah, I thought it might have been.
I'm pretty sure it's a short one. Because I think only Tier 1 has the full qualifying sessions, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, that sounds right to me.
Here is your timing. Istvan Pukki setting the fastest lap time of 1:13.5 and going in as the favorite after winning the previous race, wants to double down on the results of this race as well, and seems to be on track to do so. Yone Dobson showing up to play with just a 10th between them. Toby in the Haas, who struggled with his teammate last time around in Spa, comes in 3rd. And our defending champion, Danico, did not set a lap time.
Yeah, I'm still not sure what happened to Danico in the early portions of that, to be honest. Seems like he got himself into a spot of bother and then wasn't quite able to rescue it, or well, still not quite sure, like I mentioned. Still trying to sort myself back into the game in a way that's going to allow me to actually spectate properly. That would be really nice.
Joining in.
I want to hit spectate, or do I want to hit join session? I have no idea. Let's just hit join session for now and see what happens. Hopefully it doesn't give me a car.
I don't think it can. I think it only gives you a car if you join in during the qualifying session. And if in some reason you end up joining in I think you would have to you'd be at the back of the grid and you'd have to just make your way around without affecting anyone. I have done that myself. It is very stressful, to say the least.
Okay, I don't think it's giving me a car at the very least. I haven't got any strategy options, which is nice. Instead, I've just got a countdown at the top of the screen, which seems to be back on track. Note to self: don't really ever press the spectate option. Just go straight into the join session by the looks of things. Obviously, that's counterintuitive to what one might expect, but despite that, either way, I think formation lap is ready to get underway. If I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it is. Formation lap is underway. Now, I want to see. Also, today Kevin joined in last second and did make it. But we do have an almost full grid and 32 laps. Now, I still have yet to know what the weather conditions are going to be on this track, and I am intrigued. I'm intrigued to see what to expect. I want to see what is going to happen.
As am I. I think, well, generally, with the current weather conditions, I said this last week, though, I shouldn't be expecting any variances in strategy. Shouldn't be expecting too much difference in weather either. But we'll keep our eyes posted on it. At the moment, everybody down to Ayub Khan, of course, on soft tyres. Danny Shaw, first of the medium runners in 11th place. Interestingly enough, Tadai Kevin, recognising that he is going to be in a difficult position with this starting from the back of the grid, so he's going to be taking the soft tyres to try and scythe his way through those medium runners early on and try and make up as much ground as possible.
Do you think Tadai Kevin is also thinking about possibly the 2-stop?
I don't know about that one.
I mean, what do you have
I
to
feel
lose,
like
right?
I feel like if your options are to try and gain time on the soft tires comparative to the medium runners in front of you, you're going to be finding yourself in a difficult situation if you're going to go for a 2-stop. I'm not quite sure whether that would be the right way to go about it. I think you've got to try and stretch your stints for as long as you can. Of course, a 2-stop may be viable if everybody else elects to go for it, but you've got positions to make up, and a 2-stop, whilst it can be aggressive, you've got to make sure you have the pace to kind of back that one up.
Definitely. Also, something has just happened. I don't know if you see it too, but Tadai Kevin's car decided now was the time to go for the formation lap.
Not sure about that one.
I am very confused, and I do not know what is going on. It seems
Well,
we're going to be watching Tadai Kevin do a formation lap all on his lonesome.
this is certainly interesting. He has left
This
the
is a
session, I
first.
believe.
Sorry?
I think he's left the session, so I'm not sure what the
I have
goings
no
on
idea
is here.
what is going on. This game has yet to surprise me. Also, do you think a soft medium is the strategy, or is it medium hard? Because it seems we're having some technical difficulties on everyone's side because I'm seeing migrating host.
Yes, I'm
Let
just going to
me.
quickly take an eye at the chat and make sure there's nothing too crazy going on here. If we're going to have a restart or something else, I think we're going to have a restart by the looks of things.
Seems so.
We'll wait. Okay, we're waiting to see if it stops. I think there's going to hopefully someone's got some official ruling. But the problem with this is that people's tyres are going to be very, very cold. So I believe that Danny Shaw is opening a new lobby at present. So I'm going to go ahead and join that. And then I guess he'll sort the grid. He'll set the grid for the second portion of this restarted version of the race. And with that, hopefully all of our issues are going to cease to persist. So with that being said, I think we're all just going to try and fly into a new lobby now, Reigns. I think that's the play.
I think so too, and I am going to attempt join in.
It's filling up pretty quick, so that's the good thing. I don't think we're going to have another qualifying session, if I'm not mistaken. That should be turned off and the grid should be assorted.
Yes. And in the meantime, let me see if I can pull up the standings, although there's nothing much to see. Might be a nice thing to have up there to see what is what it looks like. Give me a second. And boom. Okay. Thank God I'm not. I will not be joining into that one. I mean, this game has had more bugs than I've ever seen. I like this is possibly my second game that I've ever been. Like I've actually like actively played continuously, but it's just not something
No, indeed. This game is riddled with issues, and I am aware of a lot of them. I mean, I've got a friend and colleague who works with me on a number of other F1 related projects who works for Gfinity for the F1 esports, and we've had a lot of those kind of things cycled back from the F1 esports stuff into our feedback that we've given to them, and it just generally doesn't seem to be getting fixed in a hurry with a lot of these anyway. So it's a difficulty. Definitely, this game is not flawlessly executed at the moment, but not to say that it might not be improved sooner rather than later. I mean, there's obviously updates always coming. There's things always changing for this game. But now with all the circuits that were going to be added, and the new game cycle probably about to start with announcements and whatnot when the F1 season does so, I imagine that we're not going to be seeing too much more love for the 2021 title when 2022 is just around the corner.
Yeah, I doubt it. And I think Codemasters are looking towards getting that next game up and running and better than the previous games, rather than trying to actively fix this one. Which, to be honest, is probably the best option they have. If not the only option. And yeah, I just want to see if like I went around a bit and I was looking at other leagues where possibly I could find some of these drivers, and the only person I could actually find information about was Edu in the McLaren, the second McLaren, who has shown considerable pace in any of the tiers he's ever been in, which is not saying much considering he did not finish anywhere notable last time around.
Yeah, I feel like if anything, though, that's kind of testament to how competitive this tier 3 grid is. I mean, even if he were to be down in tier 4, he might find himself with some stiff competition there also. So I don't think it's necessarily a problem as such. I mean, Edu being competitive in other leagues can often be a thing that, you know, is just testament to the competitiveness of each individual league. And I don't necessarily think that they're always comparable, but you can generally consider lap times and consistency in that kind of thing one and over and again. But
Possibly.
I don't know. You'd have to kind of look and see trajectory over the course of a season, which is not something that necessarily, I think, just having a brief overview gives you. But I think we're not too far off starting now, Reigns. I see that most people have managed to filter their way back into the lobby, and that fills me with some signs of hope that I'm starting to see a countdown timer at the top of my screen as well.
Definitely, and we're just about to start, and yeah,
I think now we're only missing one driver overall, which would be the sister Aston Martin car for the evening. So that's it, and a grid of 19, not quite a full grid.
I'm pretty sure this is Aston Martin car is here.
Got Harlem, but not unfortunately the sister to that car.
Yeah, that's right. I for a second I thought that that Tadai Kevin was in the Aston Martin, but no, he was just assigned the Aston Martin rather than the car he was supposed to be in. Oops, I just dropped a lot. I'm sorry if I scared anyone. To be honest, I think these kind of breaks in between these sessions really get you pumped up?
To me, it's just anticipation, just wanting to get moving faster and faster for me. I think is the difference. Whenever I'm commentating and there's a delay, it always kind of kills my vibe a little bit. Sometimes I want to just get into it. I want to just see the action, see the motive.
Yeah.
But at the moment, I think they take the wind out of the sails a little bit. Each their own. If you find them enjoyable, you find them enjoyable. But that's what it is. For me, takes the wind out of the sails. And I imagine it does so for the drivers as well. They're all getting ready to prepare for their race start. They've obviously just come fresh off the back of qualifying. Often you can find yourself losing a little bit of that momentum or focus as and when things tend to go wrong. But even still, I think we're ready to start off now. Formation lap underway any moment. Hopefully we have no further problems with Tadai Kevin or anything doing silly business by getting around in the at the back of the formation lap. Let's make sure everybody's got away fine from this formation lap. It seems as though they have. Tadai Kevin is off the mark, and that's a positive sign, I think.
Yes, everyone is off the line, and that is great. So, Esteban Puki and Harlem Marquis were the P1 and P2 last time around. So, I think Harlem is going to try to really push it all the way out to get a race win, and Esteban Puki is going to try to increase his advantage, I think.
Yeah, I think one thing that's important to note there about that, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves with tipping the scales into Harlem's favour at the moment. I mean, Marquis has got a lot of work to do. He's got 3 cars in front of him that he needs to get past, ultimately. Toby, Yene Dovson and Istvan Puki, all of which are fierce competitors and strong drivers as well. So it's going to be important for him to get a wriggle on early. I mean, looking at these different strategies, I think we've got a few discrepancies with people starting on tyres they didn't necessarily qualify on, so that might be interesting, as I note with interest that Toby is on the mediums, which was definitely not the tyre that he originally qualified on. I'm not sure whether that's going to be enforced by the WOR control, but nonetheless, it'll have to be looked into after the race, I imagine.
Yeah, I think that's not... Because I'm reading that if this is in this situation, it does count as a disqualification, and that's not
really?
something. Yeah, that's what I read from Danny Shaw.
Oh dear. Well, that's not good for Toby, and that certainly does limit the number of cars that Harlem Marquis will have to get through early on. I think the difficulty here on this particular run of things is going to be, first and foremost, that these tyres have to last an awfully long time. The soft to medium strategy is difficult because the game recommends that this should be a soft to hard. So you're going to have to stretch these stints out quite a lot. And often these mediums can feel like a bit of a myth. So if you get the worst of it out of the way by starting on these medium tyres early on and getting that fuel load down, you can often make hay while the sun shines on the soft tyres, but we're not going to have much more time to wait as it's 5 lights and they're out of the gate. Away they go, and immediately into the wall goes Toby. I think he is already taking himself out of this one because he knows that he'll be disqualified either way for the incorrect tyre set on the start procedure. So into the Tamburello chicane they fly. Seems to be an altercation in the midfield between an Alpine. I think that might have been Gradjek, as a matter of fact, in 8th place. He's still tussling with Ayub Khan, who's about to try and throw it up the inside into the Villeneuve chicane. They're still side by side, but Ayub Khan has made the move stick, and he's now hot pursuit.
Haas and Ferrari, Tyler Kevin and Robbie Van.
Oh dear, that's not what you want to see. That's never what you want to see. No, you don't want to see difficult accidents like that. And just like last week in Belgium, after the first lap, we're going to have a virtual safety car.
And there's not been a lot of changes. Harlem Marquis did make up 1 position in turn 1.
That's as a result of Toby being disqualified, just to point out.
Oh, that is true. That is true. Good point. Good point.
So, with the virtual safety car just waking its way around the track now, I believe Tadai Kevin is going to have a bit of a tough time, considering as he's missing a front wing. And the same is true for Robbie Van. So unless there's a safety car, a full-blown safety car at some point during this race, these two are going to be in a bit of a league of their own because they're going to have to make 2 pit stops, regardless of their strategy. Now 1 to go and get a new front wing, and later on in the race, 1 to change tyres, because I don't think no matter what they put on their car, those tyres are going to be particularly in good shape towards the end of the race. I think more than anything, that's going to affect Robbie Van the most, who's just picked up a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. But we're off to the races once more, as Istvan Pukki leads the field out front through the Tamburello chicane in the Villeneuve. And that's going to lead them up the hill now towards Tosa as they make their ascent before they make their very quick descent into Acqua Minerale, the dip in the middle of the track, the difficult corner, and often a very decent hotspot for overtaking maneuvers. But I think another key thing to mention here, Reigns, is going to be track limits. Over the course of this race, there's a lot of high-speed corners and a lot of curbs that you can run off onto. So track limits, getting those 3-second penalties accumulated are going to be very important to keep your eye on.
Yeah. Because especially down Acqua Minerale, where going side by side is not an option. So either there's going to be an overtake, or there's going to be a warning, or if it happens often enough, an invalidation, in a penalty. I mean, invalidation. I'm still in the qualifying mode. Sorry.
Either which way, it can also end in tears. I think that's another option to discuss. I think, things going very badly wrong. But let's just look at this one as a more holistic overview for the time being. Colonel Burke, ended up falling down the order quite considerably off the start. He's down in 16th currently, last of the in the running runners, I suppose you would say. But meanwhile, back up the front, Istvan Pukki is trying to make a bit of a break. Currently got 7.5 tenths of a second over Jerne Dovsen. That's being extended as he gets excellent traction out of Tosa at turn 7. Now throwing it into Piratella. Needs to make sure he has a good run of things here, because this is where Jerne proved on the last lap at the very least that he was pretty strong up into Acqua Minerale, keeping the car straightened up. And that's a great run of traction. There it is. Like you say, that's the second out of the DRS. And that's important for Istvan Pukki. That means that he can now try and race his own race. Not have to worry about what's going on behind him. Just keep on knocking out those lap times for a comfortable victory. Lights to flag.
KTF Paz just had a spin down Acqua Minerale. So that's got
the first victim.
That's the first victim of those bunch of corners. And Jerne Dovsen is getting chased by Harley Marquez, and Harley Marquez makes it happen way before the breaking point. And Harley Marquez trying to turn the tides, as you would say, and chase after Istvan Pukki, and is catching up.
Yeah, definitely a strong early portion to the lap here for Harlan Marquez. Obviously, the DRS component of having to pass Jerne Dovsen will have played into that, something that Istvan Pukki doesn't quite have the liberty of at the moment. But clearly, Marquez thinking that he's got the pace to track down Pukki early on here. Doesn't want to see him getting too far away, so is not content just to sit behind Dovsen for the time being. Really interesting. Oh, big snap of oversteer on the exit of Acqua Minerale. Gets it all kinds of wrong in the middle portion of the corner. Rear steps out on him, and he loses 0.2 of a second because of it. That's certainly going to harm his chances of pulling himself up by the bootstraps towards the rear of Istvan Pukki, and that's put Jerne Dovsen back in contention as we come back down the pit straight at the Variante Bassa. That's going to be the place now where Jerne Dovsen looks to try and take revenge on the Aston Martin in front of him by opening that rear wing. It pings open, letterbox out, and away he's going to try and fly. Sitting in the slipstream for the time being, not looking to make a move too early on in the straight, but now diving to the inside as they come into the Tamburello chicane, by which point Jerne Dovsen is already ahead.
Ooh, that's a nice one. Also, Tax caught up because of that small tussle as well, so you can't count that out as well. The Alpine also just putting it out there. One of the last people to set a lap time in qualifying, as you might remember. So we have yet to see what his actual pace would be like over a course of multiple laps. And so, as it seems, he is keeping up considerably. Just staying in touching distance at this moment. Also, Jerne Dovsen.
Oh, that's not good.
Oh,
that's not good. Oh,
Robbie
it's just into the
Van.
pit lane. Yeah, I
just
think he's
into the pit lane.
realised. I think he's realised that after his lap 1 altercation with Tadej Kevin, that there's not much to be writing home about in this race, and he's just given up the ghost this time around. Maybe some issues with side pod damage or further damage with the car that couldn't be repaired in the pit stop as well, that's making it difficult to ride on. As a result of that, though, it's down the pit straight. They all go once again. Jone Dovson this time setting the fastest lap of the race. He's really putting the afterburners on now in his pursuit of Istvan Pukki. He's going to have a little bit of contention coming in from Harlan Marquise, but it's not something that he can wave away at just too easily. He's now back within that 1 second deficit to Istvan Pukki as well, but I wonder just how much of his battery he's using to get the job done here. I'll take a look for you and let you know. 37% of his battery remaining for Jone Dovson. Meanwhile, the same string. Oh no! Jone Dovson's off! He's span coming out of Tosa. It's a difficult traction zone as it is, but now he has completely screwed the pooch on this race. He's down to P9. He's amongst the medium runners. He's now over what? For 7 seconds back. It's a disaster for Jone Dovson, who was just showing that he had the pace as well, Reigns.
Yeah, and also, now the overheated tires means that he's vulnerable to anyone on the medium tires whose tires are going to be way more suited after lap 6. Because lap 6, let's be honest, is quite far into your stint. And if you get a spin at that point, it's essentially, you're sitting duck. Especially to the medium runners.
And you can already see that he's been taken advantage of by not only Danny Shaw, but the Spaniard Gabriel Moral, who's managed to fly past him in the Alfa Romeo as well. That's been a difficult series of events, and now he's got his teammate Edouard up behind him, trying to make the most of it. He's going to slide past Gabriel Moral, but this is a difficult set of circumstances for Jone Dovson to find himself in. And as a result of Dovson's misfortune, Istvan Pukki has been well and truly let off the hook at the front of the field. He's now got a 2-second advantage over Harlan Marquise, and Harlan Marquise looks just, unfortunately, doesn't look like he has the pace to reel him in at the moment. Maybe when they switch tyres onto that second set, might change as the fuel load comes down, the difference in setup starts to emerge. Maybe Pukki gets a little bit too comfortable. But for the time being, it is looking like all one-way traffic for the Hungarian driver. He is in control of this race in the Ferrari. Now the race really boils down to who's going to finish second. And at the moment, Tax is desperately trying to stay within that DRS range. Just within inside the 1 second at the moment, just exhausting some more of his battery in the number 2 car, but he will have it as he flies out of Ravazza, can try and make up some lost ground on Marquise.
Also, one thing to notice, I just noticed as you were speaking, that Candy King seems to be struggling with tire wear. He's dropped almost 5/10 in the last 2 sectors. I don't know where that came from. He dropped from P4 to P6 in about 1.5 laps.
Could have been an issue, might have had a moment, a little bit of a snap of oversteer that left him vulnerable to some predators behind, but that has obviously yielded some good results for the other Alpine of Grajek and Daniel Kjelsen. So they're not going to be too complaining about that one. In fact, I'm sure they're going to be quite compliant with it. As now, speaking of Alpines, this is where the real battle's going to start to emerge now. Tax is in within a decent range to try and get a better run out of Ravazza onto the front straight this time around. Decent exit, as a matter of fact, from Acqua Minerale. That sequence of corners has been quite promising for him here, as he's now back within 4/10, diving through Variante Alta and now barreling down the hill towards Ravazza. This is where he needs to make sure he's got a good exit. This is where he needs to make sure he's got the time in hand. Might even consider using some of his ERS if he deems it important to get in front here. At the same time, though, with an exit like that, you can be considering the idea of just maybe staying in the DRS for a while. Maybe trying to recoup some of your lost ERS that you've been exhausting over the last few laps. And maybe just try and keep those tyres in the window a little bit longer by not taking too much out of them, going for a crazy move.
And he has to stay there. Stick around.
Okay, we actually have the first pitter, by the way. Sorry, Reigns. It's Jone Dovson. After his slight moment earlier on in the race, he's elected to come into the pits here on lap 9 and bang some mediums.
Had a moment.
Oh dear, I didn't even realize. Oh, he's lost his front wing and everything. Oh dear me. That is a disaster for Istvan Pukki. He is now going to be so slow, and it's not like it was an accident towards the end of the lap either, where he could just box and get a new wing. No, it's right at the beginning. He's got to go. He's got to circulate an entire lap now without a front wing. He is going to be understeering all over the track. He's going to be a sitting duck for these medium runners behind him as well. He's going to be losing seconds of worth of time. He's getting shunted through the rear of the Aqua Mineral as well. It's just not a good time for Istvan Pukki. This is a problem. He's going to have to see how well he can realistically recover from this one now, as he's got absolutely no downforce. So, Harlan Marquise, the race falls into his hands as he now takes the opportunity to slide into the pits.
Yes. And let's see how quick that pit stop is going to be. Daniel Kelson deciding, yeah, he wants to go on for a little longer. That's a very quick stop.
I think for Kelson here, he's looking at where he's going to come out, whether he's going to be in traffic or not. He has saved a pretty decent chunk of his ERS, which he's already started burning this lap. And I think he's going to be dragging Grajek along with him throughout the course of this lap. That's a bit of a moment there, though, by the looks of things, for Gabriel Morale, and that's brought out a safety car. That might be the godsend that Daniel Kjeldsen, Ayub Khan, and Grajek will all have needed in order to get their strategy working to perfection. That's going to be a kick in the teeth for Harlan Marquise and co, who've boxed on lap 9, the lap before the safety car.
This is turning out to be so. From the way that these people, they are all going onto the mediums, from the softs to the mediums, it seems we are going to see a full dry race. So I don't think we're going to get caught by surprises either. So waiting for another safety car is going to be a gamble at the very least. Also, I'm curious to see what these medium runners are going to decide to do. Are they going to decide to pit, or are they going to decide to keep going?
I think it's too early to pit off these mediums at the moment. It would absolutely ruin your strategy, and attempting to do 22 laps on the soft tyres is just not feasible, I'm afraid.
I mean to say that...
So they go onto the hard tyres, you mean?
Yeah, because Tadai Kevin did go into the pits, but he wasn't the hards.
Danny Shaw's also done the same. He's gone onto the hard tyres as well. So we are going to see some of these medium runners, just like you said, boxing onto the hard tyres. We're also seeing some of them, however, just like Justin, that racer, who's just going to be staying out on the mediums for the time being. I don't know. We're going to see a lot of variance in strategy now, but this has been an absolute godsend for the likes of Daniel Kjeldsen, Grajek, and Ayub Khan, who have all managed to usurp Harlan Marquise and company in that pit stop phase with this safety car.
Well, then again, Harlan Marquise is not that far behind. And considering he was plenty fast in the qualifying and even in the last race, so you can't just count him out, I would say, but it will be very difficult to get past 3 other people in the meantime. Also, Ayub Khan has a penalty, which is I think 3 seconds if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
yes,
3-second penalty, and that's not something you can just smile about. So effectively at this moment, Harlan Marquise is 4th, or actually 3rd even, because Justin Racer needs to go for another stop. So we need to effectively, it's not that out of the picture yet. Also, Tadai Kevin this safety car is playing to Tadai Kevin's hands, who did have that moment on the very first lap as well, which does mean that he has to make up a lot of ground, which he would have had to make up had there not been a safety car. It would have
I think that's a pretty big result for him. You know,
yeah.
he's now basically back in the race, which is something, 10 laps ago he wasn't really thinking was a possibility. I think one thing that's also worthy to mention is that Istvan Pukki is now back in sync with the drivers ahead of him in terms of tyre choice. And we've seen that he has the pace. This is an interesting one. Danny Shaw, Danny Coe, Justin that racer, after a lap behind the safety car, have all realised that they want to actually pit. This is not going to be good for them.
the only one deciding to stay on the hards.
I'm going to be honest, I'm not really sure about that. If you were going to box onto a different tyre set, you should have done so when the safety car came out. I mean, obviously you're going to be a bit screwed either way, so you might as well take the opportunity to stay where the pack is bunched. But all of this, messing about with the safety car and the gap to it, just going to make it stay out even longer, which is only going to play into the hands of those on the medium tyres, who are basically not having any tyre wear under the safety car.
Yeah, and I think I agree with Edu, rather, as well. Just stay there and just try and tough it out on the hards. They are the slower tire, but that doesn't mean that they are going to be out of contention altogether.
Exactly. I think towards the end of the
Because-
race as well, you might see Edu starting to make some progress. The
Yeah, and
mediums
20
are going to have,
laps?
yeah, exactly. They're going to have some tyre wear, aren't they? They're going to be struggling a bit. And that's where the hard tyre, with its consistency, its lap on lap consistency for a longer period of time as well, doesn't necessarily offer that mechanical grip, which admittedly is extremely necessary here at Imola. With these traction zones and whatnot. We've already seen on the soft tyres a couple of accidents in those traction zones alone, but safety car in this lap, we'll get to see whether Edu can make use of these hard tyres as the race transpires. But now everybody frantically weaving, warming up these tyres. These fresh Pirellis looking to get put to the test in the upcoming laps. As we've already seen our two previous race leaders, Jone Dovson and Istvan Pukki, take a tumble. One out of Tosa, the other earlier on in the lap. I'd imagine at the Variante
Kelson
Villeneuve.
is being very strategic, and he hits the throttle. And does he catch Dragic sleeping? No, he does not. Dragic is all on that. And
I'll tell you what,
making
there
up
you
the
go.
spot.
Yeah, he was another man who was all on that off the restart, immediately burning the battery, making sure that he could get straight by Ayub Khan. Didn't want to be stuck behind any slower drivers, as he realizes this really is his chance to secure a strong victory in WOR Tier 3. Istvan Pukki is at the moment, at the very least, out of contention, down in 9th place, has some big work to do. Meanwhile, Harlan Marquis only has 2 cars between him and the front, and he's shown that he has the pace to try and stretch away from these guys. So how much is Daniel Kjeldsen and Grajek going to hold the field here? And how much is that going to benefit, play into the hands of faster drivers like Istvan Pukki, who are already putting the moves on, just very close behind Edu at the moment? Expect to see him up into 8th position by the end of this lap.
Yeah. Also, you can see Haniko had just, and Cornel Berkey's had a moment, it seems. Both of them, they just dropped off all of a sudden from the rest of the pack. I don't know what that was about, but yeah. And
There it
we
is, by
have-
the way. In the back of the pack, it is Istvan Pukki, who has slid his way by Edu on those hard tyres. Just didn't quite have the same traction and grip as I think Istvan Pukki is going to be a man to keep your eye on. He's on a bit of a charge. He's made 2 places up in 1 lap already, and he's now closing in on Candy King as they fly through the Villeneuve chicane. Candy King's looking very juicy for the taking, right for the taking as he dives up the inside into Tosa. Good traction on the exit, a little bit slidey, snap of oversteer, but in the rear view mirror you can see that Istvan Pukki has cleared the Alfa Romeo and now has his sights set on Tax in the Alpine.
Yeah, and he's putting some distance between them. It seems, yeah. And traction is incredible as well.
Oh, that's
Harlan
big, that's
Marquis.
big. That's big. A 3-second time penalty for Harlan Marquis coming up for a constant refractions on track limits. That's only going to play into Istvan Pukki's hands. Of course, there is still some distance to be made, and I think as a result of that, you're going to see a very aggressive-looking Marquis in the coming laps now. He realizes that he's really got to go. He's really got to fly the nest, burning some of his battery already as he tries to fly up the straight. Not really gaining too much ground on Grajek for the time being. Still a little bit too far back, but DRS should be enabled next lap, and that might help him recoup some of that lost battery. Also may help him recoup some of those lost positions as a result of the safety car. But let's not discount Edouards behind him. ETA Edouards is currently on the soft tyres, so has so much more grip, superior mechanical grip, superior traction out of pretty much every zone, and also stability and braking. It's going to be interesting to see how Harlan Marquis is going to try and be offensive towards Grajek in front, but also defend against the pursuing Williams behind on those soft tyres. Of course, they're not going to last to the end, so Edouards is going to have to make another pit stop, but he's still looking to get himself in the mix. Of course, there's the added benefit for Edouards as well of helping out his teammate, Jone Dovson, who is still, in his own right, trying to make some progress from further down the field as one of the championship protagonists.
Definitely. Also, I would like to know if Edouards needs to go into any other different tire. Because if he has to go onto a soft tire or something...
I believe he started on the mediums.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure as well, but I'm not 100% sure. Also, he's made up 10 positions in the first 15 laps.
Yeah, that says to me that he started on those medium tyres as well, and he's made good use of this safety car period. Pretty decisive in his decision to box straight onto the softs by the looks of things. Keeping my eye on this this little fight for the time being, because now Grajek has started to come back towards Harlan Marquise, and you've got to imagine that Marquise is not going to be too patient with this Williams sniffing all over his rear. And speaking of the Williams, it's dove up his inside into Tosa, just as we saw Istvan Pukki do to Candy King a few laps ago. It's a mirror signal maneuver, and Edouards is up into third position and now hunting down those other medium runners in front of him into Aqua Minerale. This is where those medium tyres are really going to be at a deficit comparative to those soft tyres. You can see he's already making up time on exit alone, half a tenth, a full tenth. Now as he dives in towards the Variante Alta, he's going to keep it going, but again, another time penalty for Edouards. That's not going to be what he likes. He already had one before that, and now another 3 seconds is not going to help his case for winning or even being a feature in this race.
Definitely. I can't wait to see, because Istvan Pukki has made up a lot of ground in the last few laps. He's already up to P6 and chasing down Ayub Khan, and chasing down pretty fast, if you ask me. It's not looking great, but also Tax is surprisingly keeping up.
I feel like that's part of the DRS train, though, isn't it? That's the main feature of it. You keep yourself in tow as long as you just stay in that DRS train. It's hard to fall out of it unless you make a serious mistake. And a bad weekend goes to a worse one for Danico. 3-second time penalty for him as well. I mentioned at the start of the race that time penalties on track limits were going to be extremely important. And speaking of which, Istvan Pukki still yet to pick up one of those penalties. Could find that being a deciding factor later on in the race, as Edu does the same, but he's down in 16th. Those hard tyres just not able to be activated at the moment by the looks of things, Reigns. But yeah, I feel like we're going to be seeing a move here from Istvan Pukki at the end of this lap. He's going to be trying to use that DRS because Ayub Khan doesn't have any onto Harlan Marquise in front. He is over a second away. And as a result, this should be a pretty decent run out of Ravazza, my bad, onto Ayub Khan. He's going to open that rear wing any moment, and I'm sure he's going to take the opportunity to just sail on by before they even get towards the Tamburello chicane. Immediately pulls out of the slipstream, and that Ferrari is long gone.
Definitely. And I want to see how much time he can make up on Harlan Marquise. That is what I'm curious to see.
Well, a bit of clear air might help. Obviously, dirty air is still a factor in this game, and that's something that Harlan Marquise is going to be suffering from that Williams in front. Also, there's going to come a period in time, by the way, where that Williams in front, Edouards, is going to be struggling on his tyres and maybe will have stayed out a little bit too long, and that time is not going to be all that far away. We saw that the soft runners were boxing about lap 9 in the early portions of this race, and we're already 2/3 of the way through that stint length for Edouards, so his tyres are going to start dropping off soon, and that might mean that he starts falling back into Harlan Marquise's clutches.
Yes, and we can see Istvan Pukki having made up almost 5/10 in just under a lap. That is the pace Istvan Pukki has on the rest of the field. 5/10 is about 2/3 of a lap. That is mind-boggling. It's already in the DRS range of Harlan Marquise and chasing. This is very difficult to wrap my head around.
Yeah, it's supreme pace.
It's already 5/10. Just over a lap ago, it was 1.4 seconds was the time difference between them. He's made up a whole second. Just over a lap's time.
Istvan Pukki really does have the bit between his teeth, it would seem here. Going for it big time, doing it large, and now as a result, I think Harlan Marquise is starting to feel the pressure. He's dropped back a little bit from Edouards on this lap as well, and as a result, he has fallen back to Istvan Pukki, the one man who he can't be giving up positions to, the one man who is his main championship rival, number 1 and number 2 last time out in Spa. Yeah. Wacky exits coming on as well for Harlan Marquise. That's not going to help his claim either. Loses another 1/10 of a second, and now going down in towards Ravazza. It's going to be within 2.5 tenths of a second for the Hungarian driver behind the Brit. Marquise looking to try and defend. Now, this is what it's all going to come down to. Ultimately, with that time penalty, it's inconsequential at best, but Pookie wants to make sure he's asserted his dominance on track. Both cars with their rear wing wide open. Battery, slipstream, all of it being replenished. It's Istvan Pookie that's dove up the inside into the Tamburello chicane. It's a neat move, and you've seen how much that's taken out of Harlan Marquise. He's got 6% of his ERS deployment remaining. He's going to need to sit in
5 tenths as well.
Already. He's going to need to sit in, tuck in, and just hold on. He needs to recoup some of that lost battery. He needs to hope that there's a safety car or some other kind of issue ahead of him that he can capitalize on. It might not be now, but as long as he can stay within contention, it might be soon.
I mean, Istvan Pookie is just out of this world. And also, Edwards is making up ground briefly. Was making up a lot of ground.
Not quite though. Big oversteer moment for Edwards. Nearly completely drops the car into the wall on the exit of the Variante Alta. But he is still, like you mentioned, making up grounds. Despite that moment, he's still in the wheel tracks of Grajek.
And he's going to make the overtake happen, I think.
No, I don't think he is. I don't think he's got the battery or the tyres. Daniel Kjeldsen just covering off Grajek. The problem here for Edwards is that not only are his tyres coming towards the end of their life cycle a little bit here, but so is his ERS deployment. Down on 6%, just like Harlan Marquise was, and he's desperate to try and make this overtake. He's dummying Grajek at every opportunity. He's burning as much of this battery to try and stay as close as he possibly can. And as a result of that, he's overdriving the car so much, snapping oversteer out of the turn 7 at Tosa. Already saw him do it previously at turn 14-15 at Variante Alta on the previous lap. Another snap coming through Piratella. It's just looking erratic currently for Edwards. I think he knows that his limited opportunities to try and make up ground are fading fast. And he's going to be soon falling back into the clutches of a very angry-looking Ferrari behind him.
Yeah. And let's not forget, Istvan Pookie not only increased the gap, he is just up and away from Harlan Marquise. Harlan Marquise couldn't even keep up. 7 tenths. Just casually put 7 tenths between him and his rival for the championship. It's early to start out, but I think we're going to see this rivalry go down this season.
Oh, but speaking of rivalries, at the front, we've got a change of leader. Daniel Kjeldsen and Grajek are both getting into an altercation, and it's all gone horribly wrong. It's Istvan Pookie's round. Oh, good lord. Everybody's round. Edwards, Istvan Pookie, Candy King collected. Daniel Kjeldsen collected in all of that fracas as well. What an absolute disaster for the front runners. But once again, who is the benefactor? It's Harlan Marquise, no less. All of that hard work that Istvan Pookie has just put in has gone tumbling away once more, down into 13th position in the Ferrari. He did nothing wrong. He was just a bystander in that accident. It was really Edwards and Daniel Kjeldsen fighting for position. Edwards trying to slide by, and it's gone wrong for Edwards again. Those soft tyres are done. They are done, Reigns. He's overheated them. He is round once more, and that is just, unfortunately, a horrible, horrible accident for all drivers concerned. And once again, this is now looking like Grajek, a driver who at the start of the day we had no idea would even be contending in this race for a top 3 position, is now in a comfortable lead. And not just that, has the added buffer of Harlan Marquise and Ayub Khan behind him, both sporting 3-second penalties. We could yet still see a 1-2 for the French outfit Alpine today, as they have tax in 4th place as well.
I'm baffled by the fact that that even happened. All of a sudden, I see like 5 cars sideways. I'm like, what's going on? And also, Edwards decides he's had enough.
He's done. He's donezo. Yeah. I'm not surprised either. I think Istvan Pookie and Candy King both picked up wing damage as a result of that, as well as now gone into the pits looking for the soft tyres, but 25, 26 seconds is just going to be too much of a gap to make up unless there is a safety car. But I don't see it. I don't see it happening anytime soon, Reigns.
Neither do I. Also, Gabriel also decided to retire. It seems.
Yeah, he retired long before that. I think that he was the accident that brought out the safety car. Just left the
Oh
session
yeah,
now.
you're right. You're right. I just yeah, never mind.
Ah dear,
My
what a
goodness.
disappointing run for Istvan Pukki. Made his own mistake under his own steam in the early portions of the race. Had to
Made that
pay
time
for it.
all up and
Yeah,
had to be caught in another man's fight. It's as you would say.
yeah, unfortunately just came out
Also,
second best in that.
we shouldn't forget that Danico silently making up a lot of positions because of that tussle as well. Up to 7th.
I think one thing that's also important to note, though, is that Danny Coe, sporting 6 seconds worth of penalties, pretty much discounts himself from making all that much more progress into the points.
True.
But we are seeing a few interesting strategies coming on here. I mean, if you just look at Justin the Racer at the moment, he's currently out on 11-lap old softs in 6th position. So he's not really going to be able to make those last all that much longer, I imagine.
He might go onto another set of softs.
Yeah, I
Would not
feel
be
like that would
surprised.
probably be the best choice.
I think anything other than the softs would be just a tad too slow.
Well, speaking of the softs being a little bit too quick for their own good, Istvan Pukki has actually made up 10 seconds worth of time since his pit stop.
Oh
That
my
sounds
God.
absolutely wild, but I think it's because Danny Shaw also boxed. Edu is the next driver on track, but he is closing him at a rate of knots. I don't think it's going to be too consequential for the race result in the end, because after Edu, there is still a massive gap from Daniel Kjeldsen upwards. So this would have to be like racing against the 0% AI for Istvan Pukki, and I just don't think that's a reasonable thing to want to happen or even to assume to happen. I think, however, that one man earlier who made a blinding mistake in Jerne Dovson has somehow miraculously found himself back in contention. Up into 4th place at the moment. We know he has the pace to dispatch some of these drivers in front of him. Ayub Khan looking like a bit of a sore thumb at the moment, as he is not necessarily, at least based on last week's form and the early portions of this race, a driver who's tenured at the front of the field. We'll see how he can handle the pressure, though. With the penalty, of course, it's meaning that he's likely is not going to finish outside of those podium places unless something, again, dramatic happens. But Jerne Dovson still trying to make his mark.
Be too surprised.
That's true. It's true.
We said that about everyone, but it just Justin Racer is just got a 3-second penalty. It's first.
That's unfortunate. I think that's probably testament to those 12-lap old softs starting to go off the boil a little bit now. We're already seeing, actually, that's a big snapper thing on the exit there from Ayub Khan. He's burning his battery to try and defend against Jerne Dovson, who, in his own right, doesn't have a lot of battery to burn either. Harlan Marquise has actually, I don't know what's happened. Maybe Grajek had a moment at the exit of Ravazza, but somehow Harlan Marquise has managed to accumulate over a second in the final sector of that lap. There must have been a moment for Grajek in the Alpine, and now this front 5 is about to concertina back up, all within DRS range. Tax has just got to try and hold on and tack onto the back of this lot for the time being, and then he might find himself in a reasonably good scenario. But for the time being, these DRS trains are coming back and back again. I think Tax has just lost touch now, which is not going to be good for those behind him.
It's also just 6 laps left to go.
I know,
So
it's all
Justin
coming to a head,
Racer
isn't it?
Essentially, Justin Racer is out of contention.
I
Regardless
think he's going to
of
try and go to
penalty.
the end.
I think he's trying to go to the end, but I think he's out of contention considering the penalties, but also how much grip he's going to have. I mean, there is no grip on those tires. After lap 10, you start losing grip really quickly.
And you can see just how badly that's affecting him, actually. He's dropped about half a second towards Tax ahead in this lap alone. I think the primary objective for him is just not to lose DRS at the moment, because that would basically send him spiraling back in towards the hands of the Mercedes and the pursuing pack behind. So for the time being, it's Harlan Marquise at the front who's looking to try and make a move on Grajek, but just not close enough this time around. The Alpine stays out in front. Harlan Marquise still, of course, sporting that 3-second penalty. So for Grajek, his primary objective here is just to keep his nose clean, make sure he doesn't go off track too much, and then he should, even if Marquise finds a way by, find himself in a strong position to take a debut victory here in WOR Tier 3. For the time being, though, Harlan Marquise is still looking predatory behind him, still looking mercurial Looking like he's in the wheel tracks, trying now to just keep this gap close enough. 0.2 of a second would be absolutely ideal as he heads onto the front straight. But of course, he's still got a whole sector of this lap to go. As at the back of the field, they're just battling over fastest lap. I'm not sure they really care about who's going to take that commodity down there. The real points are up for grabs at the front.
I think, and also, fast lap points don't count if you're outside the top 10.
Exactly that.
I think these guys are trying to help out their teammates by not letting the competition on the top of the side of the field get some fastest laps.
Oh, but here we go. Harlan Marquise has now finally decided it's time to make the move with DRS assistance. That extra about 10 miles per hour. He flies up the inside of Grajek, but now that means, of course, he's really got to put his foot down. He's got to make hay whilst the sun is shining, because next time around, of course, Grajek has an opportunity to do exactly the same thing back to him down that main pit straight.
On the other hand, Harlan Marquise needs to make up 3 whole seconds to get this race win, which would put him in clear first in the Driver Championship.
It would indeed, especially with where Istvan Pukki is currently. And whilst Pukki is making time upon Edu at the bottom of the field, it's not really going to be enough to get him into the points unless he really hustles things forward. So I don't think that's going to be a feasibility for him. But at the front,
Istvan Pukki is too far outside the points to...
yeah, it would be a miracle, or there would have to be a big, big accident happen somewhere at the front. Or a safety car. I don't think that's likely now with only 4 laps to go. I think the game doesn't allow safety cars to come out within the last 3 laps at the very least. But we'll see how it ends up going. I mean, this time around, we're going to see Grajek with the opportunity to try and overtake Harlan Marquise. He has superior ERS advantage and, of course, has that DRS as well. But the gap just seems to have prolonged itself a little bit. Seems that Grajek is not interested in going for anything too aggressive this time around, as he's keeping hold of his battery for the time being, just staying stuck in behind into the Tamarella chicane. Keeping himself honest. A little bit of a moment. Yeah, you're right. Ayub Khan now smells blood in the water. Wants to try and dive up the inside, but thinks better of it as Jone Dovson is right on his rear as well. Another man who, if he can get past Grajek, might find himself again in a position of a race victory. And who'd have thought that after we watched him spinning out of the corner he's just gone through here at Tosa, turn 7. That's a ton of events for him. Just goes to show, I think, motor racing can be a cruel mistress, and events can change, circumstances can spiral so very quickly in the matter of a lap or 2.
Definitely, and I think Jone Dovson just needs to get past Grajek and has had enough. Basically, he has the race win in his hands. That's it, because Harlan Marquise has a 3-second time penalty. Ayub Khan is basically out of contention. And Grajek is the only person fighting.
And he's trying it.
Ooh,
it's a big tussle up the inside of Ravazza, but that now gives him DRS on Grajek in front. Of course, burning his battery down as well. Jone Dovson doesn't really have too much deployment left to play with, to be honest with you. And it looks like now Grajek is still comfortable to sit in behind Harlan Marquise for the time being, just using that DRS that he's being given to protect him from attack from behind. He's got 2 lap fresher tyres than Jone Dovson. He's got considerably more battery than Jone Dovson. At the moment, the Alpine driver holds all the cards.
Definitely. Yeah, that's like... And there seems to be...
Oh,
Edu.
that's Edu. Yeah. Well, that puts Istvan Pukki back in the points, weirdly enough.
Yeah. That's... I mean, I don't think it really matters that much, but... his closest person is
23 seconds away. Yes.
His own teammate? That's about 10-ish seconds away.
Team orders, maybe?
Maybe. You never know.
No, it's true. I think there has been a mistake made by Tadej Kevin or something, because he has just lost a considerable amount of time to the car in front also. But here we go then. Lap 31 about to tick over as we cross the line. This is going to be an interesting one. The penultimate lap of the Imola Grand Prix.
And Jone Dovson is chasing.
Oh, he's going for it. He's actually opened the battery. He's going to slide to the right. It's covered off by Grajek, who is still not wanting to overtake Harlan Marquise. Just using him to accumulate more battery, I think, over the course of this lap. And now into the Villeneuve chicane. He's going to throw it through. Again, just keeping ahead of Jerne Dovson behind, making sure that there's no problems. Just keeping that tight line, trying to keep your power acceleration, your power delivery nice and even to make sure you're not going to get any snaps of oversteer that could invite someone to stick a wheel up the inside. That's going to be his MO at the moment for keeping the Slovenian Jerne Dovson behind, sorry. At the moment, Grajek still within touch of Harlan Marquis too. A strong race from him so far.
Also,
what a
Harlan
race
Marquis
it would be.
is at this moment playing for third.
Yeah, absolutely is. And in fact, if Tax still stays within contention as close as he is, he may not even be playing for that with the 3-second penalty applied after the result, after the flag, as Grajek is getting increasingly closer. Will this be the time around out of Ravazza that he decides to make the move on Harlan Marquis? Jerne Dovson is also dangerously close in behind. DRS open for both drivers. The Slovenian in the wheel tracks of Grajek ahead. Harlan Marquis, no battery left to play with. Harlan Marquis trying to cover off Jerne Dovson, but both of them get through. Dovson now sits in second place. Grajek takes the lead on the final lap of the Grand Prix. Grajek, of course, has more battery to burn. Ayub Khan has crashed out of the Grand Prix on the final lap as well. What a disaster for the AlphaTauri driver. But more importantly than that, at the front of the race, Grajek is using that battery, using that traction. He's trying to pull a gap to make sure he's not susceptible to any further attacks from Jerne Dovson throughout the final portions of this lap. Through Piratella, just don't pick up any penalties, just don't make up any mistakes, and you're going to be okay. Alpine will have 2 cars on the podium by the looks of things as well, because Tax is yet to pick up a penalty. Harlan Marquis has not dropped him back either. And now into the final chicane they go. Alta has been negotiated. Grajek is using the rest of his deployment. Down the hill towards Ravazza they go. 0.5 of a second. And I think he's done just enough. As long as he doesn't run wide on the exit of Ravazza 1, he'll get it on Ravazza 2. Using the rest of his bot deployment, Grajek takes his first win in WOR Tier 3, followed by Jerne Dovson and a podium from Tax. 2 Alpines on the podium. Harlan Marquis relegated to 4th after that 3-second penalty is applied. And who'd have thought, after the miserable qualifying session that Danico endured, that he'd wind up in 5th as well.
That is insane. And I'm gonna be honest, I did not come in thinking that we would see anyone put up a challenge, but Esteban Buki having the worst luck this race really just put everyone in the rest of the field in contention for the race win, actually. Harlan Marquis having to fight for it did not make it happen, unfortunately.
That is that's a tough pill to swallow for Harlan Marquis, but I think he should still take control of the championship as a result of that 4th place result, if I'm not mistaken. My maths has never really been my best subject, but
despite mine.
Despite that, I feel pretty confident in making that assessment. I think for him, it's a good day at the office, but I think let's pack it off by saying it could have been better for Harlan Marquis, as he definitely could have stretched that advantage even further, over the suffering Hungarian in Istvan Puki. But never mind that. Grajek takes his first win from 8th on the grid. 1 stop in his way onto those medium tyres, making them last and taking the full 25 points away from Jerne Dovson and Harlan Marquis. Tax manages to get himself up onto the podium places as well with a neat 3rd place for the Finn. And then it's the 2 Brits, followed by Cornell, who managed to get himself up into 6th place after a pretty whack start. 2 Fast managed to get himself up to 7. Tadej Kevin recovering from the back and that lap 1 altercation to make his way to 8th. And of course, unlucky Istvan Puki from 1st on the grid, falling down to 9th, with Danny Shaw rounding out the point scorers in 10th.
Yeah, I mean, that's... Alpine had a nice weekend. And I think the only team that got close to challenging that the race was Ferrari, as crazy as it seems, with an 8th and 9th very close together. But to be honest, I think the Mercedes did pretty okay, in part to thank to Danico.
Yes, and also I think in part two, a number of different DNFs this weekend. Obviously, Imola a difficult track. I was mentioning it in qualifying, but it can be a pretty skill-heavy track and requires a little bit of a skill ceiling in order to work out properly. But there it is, round two of the season completed, and I've got to say, it was a thoroughly entertaining race. Even still, what have we got next week, Reigns? What tracks next week?
We have Russia coming up next week.
Okay, the Sochi Autodrome. Interesting one, definitely. I in real life often produces boring racing, but I've seen that in F1 2021 and my own experience as well. Yeah, walls exist, and it actually ends up making pretty good racing.
Yeah, I agree. Especially some of those Sector 3 curbs.
Yeah, they are spicy to say the least, aren't they?
I mean, there are curbs and there are mountains, but I think neither one fits the description in this case.
No, I think you might be right there. But I think as a result of that, we'll wrap it up for the night. Thank you all for watching. It's been an absolute pleasure to bring you the broadcast this evening. I hope you very much enjoyed as much as we have. Congratulations once again to Grajek on taking his debut win in WOR Tier 3. It's been a pleasure to bring it to you, like I say, and we'll see you another time.
Goodbye, everyone. And see you guys next week.